Please be seated. The court is now in session. Today the chamber will hear the statements of sufferings, harms and impact by 3 civil parties. And before we proceed, on the hearing of the statements of suffering by those 3 civil parties, the Chamber would like to inform all the parties to discuss that for today's proceeding and the subsequent days, Judge Ju Uttara, who is the national judge, is absent due to his health. And after the consultation with the sitting judges of the trial chamber, we decided to appoint Judge Tumani, the reserve national judge, in place of Judge Ju Uttara's seat until such time that he returns to the bench. That is based on Rule 79.4 of the ECCC internal rules. The parties and the public are also informed that Judge Claudie French, the international reserve judge, is absent today and the following days due to her urgent personal business. And due to time difference between Cambodia and the United States, and as we actually scheduled to hear a witness, a civil party, in fact tomorrow and the 6th and the 7th of June 2013 through a video link. The sitting time for tomorrow is at 8:30 a.m. and we will recess at 11:30, and for the afternoon session it will be unchanged, as we will have a witness appeared in person for the afternoon session. Also, for Friday afternoon, that is the 7th of June 2013, the Chamber will commence the afternoon session at 1 p.m. and will adjourn at 3:30 p.m. Mr. Dao An San, could you report the attendance of the parties and individuals to today's proceeding? Dao An San, Mr. President, all parties to the case present, and Nuji is present in the holding cell downstairs based on the decision of the trial chamber in relation to his health. The 3 civil parties who are to make their statements of sufferings today, namely TCCP4, TCCP 145, and lastly TCCP 141, are present and awaiting to be called by the chamber. Thank you. President, thank you. And before we invite the civil party into the courtroom, we would like to inquire from the lead co-lawyers as for the process of listening, of hearing the statements of the 3 civil parties. Yet you have any request to be made for the procedural purpose? Big on. Good morning, Mr. President, Your Honors. For the three civil parties, we will process as follows. For TCCP4, Ms. Nuchin Sakati will question her. We question the civil party. She will briefly make a statement and put the questions to the civil party. As for the second civil party, that is TCCP 145, that civil party will be questioned by the assigned lawyer Sam Sukung. The civil party will express the statement of suffering, and if deemed necessary, the assigned lawyer will put the questions to the civil party. And for the last civil party, the civil party will be questioned by Emmanuel, the assigned lawyer. The assigned lawyer will first confirm about the documents and then put the questions to the civil party. Thank you. The three civil parties all have questions for the accused. President, thank you. Court officer, could you invite the civil party TCCP4 into the courtroom? President, good morning, Madam Civil Party. May we know your name? Civil Party. Good morning, Mr. President. My name is Supani Bay. President, how old are you? Answer, I am 67 years old. Question, where were you born? Answer, I was born in Kampong Chnang province. Question, where is your current address? Answer, I live in San Jose in California, America. Question, what are the names of your parents? Answer, my father's is Uy Nim, and my mother is Sieng Sien. Question: Are you married? If so, what is his name and how many children do you have? Answer: I am married. His name is Saran Bay, and we have 3 children, 1 son and 2 daughters. Thank you. As a civil party before this court, you are given an opportunity to make a statement of sufferings inflicted upon you materially, emotionally, and physically, which are the direct result of the crimes, and which led you to become a civil party in this case. The crimes that have been charged against the 2 accused, that is Nuon Chea and Khieu Samphan, and which took place during the Democratic Cambodia regime from the 17th April 1975 to the 6th of January 1979. You will first be questioned by your civil party lawyer, and you will then have the opportunity to make your statement on sufferings and impact. The floor is now given to the assigned lawyer for civil party to put questions to this civil party. You may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. If I may make a brief introduction before I begin my questions. Your Honor, Mrs. Safani Bay is a direct victim of the forced evacuation of Phnom Penh. She submitted her victim information to the court. That's document number D22/3850. Her victim information form was written in both Khmer and English, and that's available at ERN 00571050 through 75. The French ERN is 00846057 through 72. The Khmer translation is at 00865219 through 26, and the English translation is 00867203 through 11. She was admitted by OCIJ as a victim of the forced transfer from Phnom Penh. Her testimony today will detail her experience under the Khmer Rouge regime and the resulting impact of these traumatic events. We will hear that as a mother alone with her children on the day of the evacuation, Mrs. Bay was forced to flee her home with her 6-month-old baby and her 2 small children, with only 1 small pack of clothes, milk, and water to sustain them. Her testimony today will describe the harm she and her children endured during the march out of Phnom Penh and the devastating loss of all 3 children as a result of the regime. Mrs. Bay left Cambodia in 1983, where she was reunited with her husband. She will explain that even though she left Cambodia and now resides in the U.S., her suffering continues to this day. At present, she's a mental health counselor at the Gardner Mental Health Center in San Jose, California. This is a clinic that was created as a special program to assist victims of the Khmer Rouge regime in that county and have been identified as having overwhelming mental health problems related to trauma. Mrs. Bay will explain that her symptoms are not unique. She sees the same symptoms amongst her clients and the community around her. Mrs. Bay will explain that not only did the war tear apart her community, it left her and her husband childless, without an extended family, and with a feeling of hopelessness and isolation that endures to this day. Your Honor, at this time, I'd like to pose some questions to the civil party regarding her relevant experience under the Khmer Rouge, if I may. Good morning, Mrs. Bay. Before we begin talking about your experiences under the Khmer Rouge, will you first describe to the court what your life was like before April 1975?
Good morning, Council, and good morning, Mr. President and Journalists. Today, I am grateful that I could travel from the United States to appear before this court and to have the opportunity to make my statement of sufferings regarding what we suffered under the Khmer Rouge regime from 1975 to late 1978. Before the 17th April 1975, I was living in Phnom Penh. I was a teacher, and my husband at the time was the Lieutenant Colonel and was the youngest brother of Samtio Kane, the first wife of the Marshal Lun Nol. I had 3 children. The eldest son was Sapanavong Bay, alias Paul, and my daughter's name was Botum Kunti Bay, alias Pin, and my 2-month baby at the time was Lilavade, alias Pom. I was living with my husband and my families, and in late 1974, my husband was assigned by Lun Nol government to study in Fort Benning in Columbus, in Georgia, for the senior official military role, and I was living with my 3 children in Phnom Penh at the time.
And can you tell the court what happened to you on April 17th, 1975?
On the 17th April 1975, Khmer Rouge soldiers entered Phnom Penh. They were walking everywhere along the streets. They were dressing in black uniforms, and every one of them, male and female, were armed. They had stern facial expression, and those Khmer Rouge soldiers began firing shots into the air and chased the people to immediately leave their houses and Phnom Penh. I was terrified. I could not imagine that they would do that. I carried my youngest child, and together with my 2 other children, I could not manage to carry any much belonging. So I only got a clothes for each of my child and some milk and milk bottles, and I placed them all in a carry bag that I used to use it for going to school. And I had to leave urgently as we were repeatedly chased and warned by the Khmer Rouge soldiers, and they said that the Americans would drop the bomb very soon, and that we would only leave for 3 days. I had to leave. If not, and if the Khmer Rouge soldiers enter my house, I would be killed, or I could not imagine what would happen. because I had photos of my husband in the military uniform displayed in the house, as well as the photos of my related family member of Marshal Lunol. So together with my 3 children and a bag filled with clothes, I went to my elder sister-in-law's house, whose husband was the Vice Minister of the General Mobilization named Wan Sarand. But the Khmer Rouge stopped me from proceeding forward. For that reason, I had to leave where I was pointed through. I did not know where I should head through. Everybody was confused. So I just kept going along with the rest, along the side streets, reaching the main street, and the road was fully crowded. Each step took a long time to move forward. And I was on the main road near Chamkamon, and we were heading in the directions instructed by the Khmer Rouge. So we reached Chaba North and then Chaba Ampo, and along the road, as I observed on the day, the scene was pitiful. I saw dead bodies, the bodies of the Lunol soldiers, the bodies of elder people, the body of children and the pregnant women. And another scene that I witnessed was that of the disabled people and those people who still had oxygen in their nostril. And if you can recall, that was the hot season, the hot month in Cambodia, and we had to travel under the heat of the sun. We kept moving very slowly under the heat of the sun, together with my 3 children. I held on very tight to my children as I was afraid I might lose them. So we walked crossing Chaba North, crossing through Chaba Ampo, and then we were heading toward the Troi Sla. The journey took us several days before we could leave the Phnom Penh. We had to stop and rested at empty houses, belongs to Chinese families, and we would just stay at any empty houses as the rest of the travelers did. So we just kept going, and one time we reached an area where there were a lot of mango trees. It was raining that day, and I had nothing to protect my children. So we took a refuge under a mango tree. We were all soaked. I had my young baby close to my chest, and I covered the baby with my body. And in the morning, we were chased to go further by the Khmer Rouge soldiers. And from that day, my young baby, that is my daughter, became sick. That was because of the impact of being soaked under the rain and because of the extreme heat. She got fever, and my 2 other children also got fever, and myself also got fever. But we had to force ourselves to move as instructed by the Khmer Rouge, and we did not have any destination in mind. Later on, we reached Troi Sla, and my children's situation became worse. So I decided to stay in that Troi Sla village. We went to take refuge under the house of the best people. Those best people had a pity on us because they saw I had young children, so they gave us some food. But the Khmer soldiers reprimanded the best people and instructed them to stop giving food to us. And we were chased to move to stay far away from the best people because of my distinct social class. As I was treated as the new person, the 17th April person, and the villagers were considered the best people. So the Khmer soldiers chased us away to the end of to the outskirts of the village and tried to build our shed by ourselves. My youngest baby was becoming even seriously sick. But because the Khmer soldiers threatened us, I had to go into the forest and to pick the palm tree leaves with my two elder children, and they were still pretty small at the time. And then I borrowed a knife and cut some tree branches, and then I dug the ground and erect those palm tree leaves as our shelter. But I could not stay there for long as my daughter became seriously sick. With me, I had a diamond ring, which was a gift from my elder sister-in-law when I got married. So I exchanged that diamond ring for some medicines with the best people. Initially, I exchanged for 25 cans of rice, and then I exchanged the rice with aspirin. I got 10 tablets of aspirin and other medicine for the treatment of my children and myself. But the medicine could not improve the condition of my children, especially my young daughter. She got dysentery. She could not eat anything, and she would throw up when she ate anything. So I went around looking for anyone who had the medical experience to help my children. One villager then advised me to walk about 4 or 5 kilometers from the village and that I would find a military hospital. So I went along by carrying my daughter and with the other 2 children. I saw a male soldier and I was told that he was the medic. I begged that military medic, asking him to save my children. I told them that my children got fever and dysentery and would not take anything. The medic asked me to bring along my children and have a few beds, and I was asked to put my young baby on the bed. Then he came back with some kind of medicine and he injected my baby on the skin, on top of the skull. I did not dare ask what it was. Upon the time he took away the needle, my youngest child got seizure and passed away. I cried. That was the first time that I witnessed such a tragedy in my life. I hugged my baby and we all cried.
In the afternoon, I carried the dead body of my youngest daughter to bury in the forest nearby. I carried the dead body to the forest nearby and then I buried her myself. There were only 2 people helped me dig the pit and I put the dead body in the pit and I put a wooden post on the grave so that I could recognize it later on. At that time, I was very confused. I was in the state of confusion. I could not do anything. I became very forgetful. And since then, the Khmer Rouge soldier made me to work extremely hard from morning till night. I had to plant corn. My 2 other kids stay at home. Nobody took care of them. They stayed at home alone and I had to go to the cornfield to work. And upon my return at home, I did not see my 2 kids. I was very, very shocked. I had to try to look for my kids. And then a few minutes later, they came back home. I was happy. They carried with them 2 small branches of trees. And then my younger sister told me that she used this small branch of tree to dig something to look for something for it, and they told me every day about what they had to do, and I was very shocked upon hearing what they had to do during the daytime. So I decided to leave the place. I attempted to leave the place twice, but I could not do it because I was eventually arrested by the Khmer Rouge soldier. And upon arresting me, the Khmer Rouge warned me not to attempt to leave the place. I had to stay on. And then on the 3rd attempt, I could leave the place. I had to take a small boat over there, crossing the river, and then I went to another village. At that time, I got to that village, and then there was a truck taking the Chinese back to Phnom Penh in order to plant vegetable. And then I begged them to get on the truck by themselves. And then they asked me, I was not Chinese. Why did I get on the truck? I begged them to kindly give me the lift to Phnom Penh. So at that time, when we got to Phnom Penh, the place where they grow vegetable, they did not ask the people to leave the truck. They continue to take us to Tuol Sleng Pagoda near Kampong Kantut. Over there was a military base. It was the battalion, and there were many Khmer Rouge soldiers. They were wearing black uniform and they were fully armed. They came to take us from the truck, and then they brought us to an empty house, and people were packed in that house at that time. It was completely dense with people. It was like a bunch of banana. People were staying in such a dense and house, and then the Khmer Rouge made the people to clear the bushes and forests in order to clear the forest for farming. We had to do it. It was a very difficult job. We got stung by insects and we had to work until we could clear the forest for farming. And then after we had cleared the forest, they made us to plow the field. At that time, they did not use buffaloes or any animals to plow the field. They use human labor to plow the field. And those who resist going, or those who pretend to be lazy, they would be beaten instantly. They harshly beat them. I had to work over there. It was in that place that my son, Paul Suvarnavong, one day my son asked to follow me to work. He did not want to go to did not want to stay at home. Then the Khmer Rouge soldier did not allow my son to follow me to the rice field. Two Khmer Rouge soldiers then took my son out, and then one of the Khmer Rouge soldiers put a gun inside my son's mouth. My son was crying, but his tear did not drop, but he was crying very, very hard. The Khmer Rouge told my son and me that my son was not a Cambodian son, he was an American son, he was an imperialist son. Look at him, he was crying, but his tear did not drop out. Then the Khmer Rouge soldier told me that he would not kill my son, but he had to threaten him so that he would not follow me to work. Then the other soldier of the Khmer Rouge pointed the guns at my back, pushing me to go to work. I begged them for mercy. I begged them not to kill my son. If they killed my son, they had better kill me. I told them at that time, and he took a scarf to tie my son's hand together. My son was screaming very hard at that time, but of course his tear did not come out. He put my son in a small pond. My son was still screaming. And as for my daughter, she did not want to follow me, but she wanted to follow her brother. So I had no choice but to go to work. So I had to continue walking. But while walking, I turned back to look at my son, what would happen to my son. Then when I look at them, and then my son and the daughter decided to run after me, and when they got to me, he fell down. He could not say anything. He just fell down on my feet. And my son could not say anything because he had lost all of his energy and words. And then then my daughter told me everything. And then I untied my sons. Then I saw the bleeding on the hands. I felt very, very sorrowful at that time. And since then, my two children body got swollen, and then they got very sick, and their situation only got worse each day. The Khmer Rouge did not give us food to eat. Every day, I only received only a cup of watery gruel for the adults. As for kids, they were given only half of a cup of watery gruel. I at that time had one watch with me, a Seiko brand. I had hidden it in somewhere along my waist. I took this wristwatch to exchange for some medicine from the villagers. I got some vitamin B1. I received only 8 tablets of vitamin B1 in exchange for this wristwatch. And upon getting these pills, I administered them to my children. But the situation, the condition of my children did not get better because their bodies were swollen all over. And then the Khmer Rouge soldier sent me to another military base, 320. This base was known as 320. At that place, the Khmer Rouge soldier made me to work very hard. I had to carry earth every day. They wanted to build a dam over there. I stayed there for 3 months. Then they continued to send me to another new place, which I did not know its whereabouts. And then the Khmer Rouge soldier took biography of me. I told them that I was a former teacher, but the Khmer Rouge soldier did not believe in me, and then they stared at me with a very stern impression. They said that I was not a teacher. I was a TV commentator during the Lon Nol regime. From that day onward, the Khmer Rouge undertook surveillance on my activity day and night. And then they took me and my children as well as others to be located somewhere in Jiso mountain. Over there we had to work extremely hard. We had to break the stones and we had to stay in a very miserable huts. We had to work extremely hard, breaking rocks. We work all the time. Whenever the Khmer Rouge asked us to work, we had to work. There is no working hour for us. It was in that place that my son got even worse, and I ran out of any medicine at all. I had no idea what to do with my sick son. And in addition, the Khmer Rouge soldiers starved us. They did not give us any food to eat at all. When we stayed there for 2 days, we had nothing to eat. We only ate the wild plant leaf. We boiled them and then ate the wild plant leaf. And I also begged some people for some rice that I begged other people for, together with some palm fruit that I picked along the way. And then I prepared that for the food at that time. And then on that night, when we were so starving, we did not have anything to eat but the plant leaf. I cried very painfully. I hugged my 2 children. I did not know actually while at that night I hugged my son. I did not know when my son passed away. And the next morning when I got up, I saw my son. He was motionless. His body temperature got very cold, and I did not know. I tried to open the eyes of my son. I tried to feel him on the nose, but then I realized that my son had already passed away. It was a very miserable thing in my life. We had nothing to eat. I believe that we died because of starvation. And in the afternoon, I carried the dead body of my son myself to bury. Nobody helped us. Only some people who took pity on our family, they helped us to dig the pit to bury our son. I buried my son to bury somewhere near the foothill of Jiso mountain, and then I put a stone and I carved a stone myself, just carved the name of my son, Paul. I put it on the grave of my son. Then when I came back home, my only daughter rather, at home, she got sick and very, very sick. And at that time, her condition was very terrible, and then I could not do anything to help. I did not have any medicine to administer anything, and Eventually, my daughter, my only daughter, died. And my daughter, my last daughter who died, she was a very clever daughter. She is only 5 at that time, but she continued to talk to me until she died. She told me that, Mommy, please take me to the doctor. Please give me some medicine. I wanted to live with you. I want to stay with you. I did not want to go away from you. And then just minutes later, she told me that, Mommy, Pin would not survive, would not live with you. When will our father come back from the United States? Why did he stay so long in the United States? You, Mommy, had to find father. And then she died immediately. Then when my last daughter died, I became almost insane. I could not do anything. This was the last times that I had nothing left for my life. I became almost insane. I did not talk to anybody. I cried myself. I wanted to die with my children because I had nothing left. I had nothing left. My children were all dead. After that miserable period, I became almost insane myself, and some people even call me Niang Bandacha, a sorrowful lady. This was the tragedy in our family. It was the consequence of the Khmer Rouge regime. They died because of the Khmer Rouge soldier. And I would like to appeal to the court to find justice, and I would like everyone in this court to understand my sorrowful life.
Thank you. Your Honor, at this time, I'd like to display a photograph on the screen. This is in the case file under document number E285.1.1. That's ERN 00910047. Mrs. Bay, do you recognize this photograph?
Yes, this is the photo of my youngest daughter, Leelavadi alias Pom. I also bring this hard copy photo with me. This is the photo of my youngest daughter. She was injected on her head by the Khmer Rouge medic, and then she died instantly after that. She was the first daughter to die.
And how did you know that the person that injected her head was Khmer Rouge?
The President, civil party, please hold on until the microphone is activated. Response: because the villager told me that this was the hospital of the Khmer Rouge.
Thank you. And do you have any other photographs of your children to this day?
No, I do not have any other photo. This is the only single photo that I sent to my husband in the United States just a week prior to the Khmer Rouge entering Phnom Penh. That's why he only had this photo with him, and I do not have any other photos of my other children. The Khmer Rouge destroyed all of them.
Thank you, Mrs. Bay. Now, at the end of the war, how many members of your family survived?
When the Khmer Rouge regime was over, I had nothing left, completely nothing left. I had to try to look for my parents in Kampong Chnang, but they all disappeared. I saw no one. I saw empty land and only palm trees. I asked the villager. The villager told me that the Khmer Rouge had exterminated my family. They had killed my father first. I had to look for my families on my husband's side, but again they were all killed. They exterminated my family, both on my side and my husband's side. I had nobody left. I had no relative left. I only had my husband who resides in the United States.
Thank you, Mrs. Bay. Now, I'd like to ask you a few questions now, if I may, about the impact of these traumatic experiences on your life.
The President, Council, please be reminded that you have only 4 minutes left, including the questions you put and the response from the civil party.
Thank you, Your Honor. Can you describe to us how your experience under the Khmer Rouge affected your health?
After I reunited with my husband in 1983, my husband was a handicapped person. And because of the suffering I sustained from the Khmer Rouge regime, I became mentally sick. I also had some disease with me as well. I always had nightmare, and at night sometime I had nightmare. I scream. I live in a traumatic life because of this tragedy during the Khmer Rouge regime. Until today, I still have nightmare of the atrocity of the Khmer Rouge regime. At night, I would dream of the Khmer Rouge soldier chasing me and trying to kill me.
Your Honor, since we have an extra 1.5 hours today, would you mind if I take a few more minutes to question the civil party?
The President, your request is not granted because she will have to respond to the questions as well, and I don't think that you have used the time effectively.
Can I ask another quick question? And I will ask Mrs. Bay if she can answer the question very quickly. And Mrs. Bay, what other symptoms?
The President, we have not yet granted your request. Of course, you are now granted with the last question for the civil party.
Your Honor, after my question, Mrs. Bay also has just 2 questions that she'd like to pose to the accused, if she may.
The President, you may proceed to put the questions, otherwise your time will be up. As I say, the time for the civil party to put the question to the accused, we will grant that time. Of course, the civil party will have time to put the question to the accused. We understand the importance for the civil party to put the question to the accused. That's why we remind parties, and you in particular, to put the question effectively so that you will make the best use of court time. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mrs. Bay, can you quickly describe for us what other symptoms you experienced after you returned from the fall of the Khmer Rouge?
As I said earlier, following the Khmer Rouge regime, I have had psychological impact, and of course physical suffering. I also sustained it. I got wounded on my leg, and I became very weak. My health was not as good as before, and at night I had nightmare. This was the trauma I actually sustained as a consequence of the Khmer Rouge regime.
Your Honor, may I ask one further question of the civil party?
President, you are not civil party. If you have questions for the accused, you may proceed. Civil party, Mr. President, I thank you for giving me the opportunity. I do have questions to be put to the accused. I have 3 questions actually. The first question is the following. Mr. Kirsampon and Mr. Nuonchi, you were the leaders leading the country and the regime of the Democratic Cambodia. Were you aware that the Khmer Rouge killed children, even the youngest children, including mine? My second question. Were you aware that the Khmer Rouge soldiers went around mistreating children, interrogating children, and forced children to tell the stories of their parents? And did you order those Khmer Rouge to behave in such a way? And here is my third question. If you were not aware of it, if you did not hear it, or if you did not order for such conduct by the Khmer Rouge, who actually did it? Who actually gave the order? And I would like the response from you as the leaders of the regime at the time. Thank you. President, in principle, your questions have to be put through the President, and as Mr. Kirsampon is present in this courtroom, I will now redirect the questions to Mr. Kirsampon first, and then Mr. Nuonchi Kirsampon, and you may proceed. Kirsampon. Good morning, Mr. President. Good morning, Your Honors. And good morning, everyone in and around the courtroom, and my national compatriots who are present here today. And good morning, Madam Bay Supani. I would like to respond to your questions. First of all, I would like to inform you that I am not the leader of the Democratic Cambodia regime, although I was labeled as the head of state. I did not have any authority. And to respond to your question whether I was aware that children were killed by the Khmer Rouge soldiers, And allow me to apologize. I did not know anything at all, and that is the truth. I did not know anything at all regarding this matter. And to respond to your second question, that why children were mistreated and interrogated, and were those Khmer soldiers given instructions to do so? To respond to this second question, I would say I did not know about this matter. Through my knowledge, there was no such order, not at all. And to respond to your last question, but before that, allow me to add to your second question. I personally did not give any order through any soldiers to do so. I did not have any authority over the military, not even a smallest group of soldiers. And personally, I am not that cruel and illiterate person like that. And for your third question that you asked, whether if I did not know who knew about that, you said that you went to Troi Sla. This means that the person who was responsible for that sector was the one who had the authority to do so. This is my understanding. So I myself would oppose such cruel and crazy act. But I really regret that I did not know about this matter, and that is all. Thank you, Mr. President. President, thank you. The questions by the civil party are now redirected to Nuon Chea. And Nuon Chea, you may respond to the questions. President, Mr. Nuon Chea, can you hear us? If so, can you respond to the questions put to you by the civil party, by Supani? Nuon Chea. Good morning, everyone in and around the courtroom, and good morning, Mr. President, and good morning, Madam Sotini, says Nuon Chea, if I can recall your name correctly. Allow me to express my sorrow and regret for the loss of lives of your family members as mentioned by you this morning. And allow me to contribute to the condolences and to express my condolences to the lost. Allow me to clearly state that Democratic Cambodia did not have any policy to kill its own people. On the contrary, it only had the policies to rescue and to build the people to become good citizens, to become the compatriots, and to be loving one another. And as in the case of your children, the Democratic Cambodia regime did not have any policy to kill children, or young children. And allow me to reiterate that point clearly. And please allow me to share the sorrow of the loss of your family members. And that's all, Mr. President. President, thank you. The floor is now given to the prosecution to put the questions to the civil party. You may proceed. You have 10 minutes to do so.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Good morning, Your Honors. Good morning to all parties. And good morning to you, Madame Civil Party. We unfortunately have very little time at our disposal, and yet your story is extremely rich in detail and quite lengthy. Therefore, I will ask only a few supplementary questions and do my best to avoid reviving your personal pain and agony. In a letter addressed to Mr. Al Sontuni, you stated that you lost many members from your side of the family, from your husband's side of the family, and that they had departed in order to be executed. I wish to know how you learned of that occurrence, how you learned of those events, and if you know whether or not they were identified as members of Mr. Lon Nol's extended family.
I received information from the villagers who were from the native village of my mother-in-law. When the Khmer Rouge chased people away from their houses, my in-law families all went toward their native village, that is in Run village in Takao province. So they knew of the backgrounds of my in-law families very well, that my father-in-law was the father-in-law of Marshal Lon Nol. They knew about the occupation of my elder brother-in-law as well.
And were several of your in-laws members of Lon Nol's army, or did several of your in-laws serve as officials for the Lon Nol regime?
The relatives of my husband's side were mainly public servants, and they were senior government officials. For that reason, the burden was placed on the Lon Nol extended families. Even on my side, my parents who were living in Kampong Chnang were killed because they were the in-law of the Marshal Lon Nol's father-in-law, and the Khmer Rouge knew about that.
Merci. Vous avez...
Thank you. You've also told this court that many of your husband's friends who also served as public servants or soldiers for the Lon Nol regime had perished under the Khmer Rouge regime. Based on your observation, were those public servants specifically sought out and targeted by the Khmer Rouge during the 1975 to 1979 era?
I am not sure about the chasings and the killing. But I knew for sure that the Khmer Rouge people killed Colonial soldiers, in particular the military officers who were in the rank similar to that of my husband. And there were only a few surviving military officers who are currently living in the United States, and a few are living here in Cambodia.
Je voudrais revenir au
I wish to return to the topic of the treatment that was meted out to the April 17 people when they were sent to forced labor. You stated that when villagers were providing your children some food out of the generosity of their hearts, the Khmer Rouge had prohibited them from doing so. Did the Khmer Rouge ever describe or provide reasons as to why there was different treatment based on different categories of people? And did they ever explain why April 17 people were segregated from the base people?
That is true. The Khmer Rouge told me clearly that my social class was different from that of the base people in the village. I was told that I will consider the new people, the 17 April people, while the villagers were considered the base people, and I should be separated from the base people.
Est-ce que
And were the base people and 17 April people treated in the same manner, regardless of the village that they lived in terms of housing, health care they were given, food they were given, treatment, or even in the manner in which they disappeared?
Yes, there was a huge difference. The best people who were considered to live in the liberated zone, they hate more than what we hate. They had sufficient rights to eat. We, the 17 April people, only ate watery gruel with a few grains of rice, and we only had salt to eat. And sometimes we were given very little dry fish or fermented fish, but mainly we only ate with salt, and sometimes we were starved. As in the case of the death of my son, we were not given sufficient food, and my son died. And what we had at the time was only rice bran and 3 leaves in the pot. How could we survive with rice bran? The rice bran was meant for pigs to eat. But we had to resort to eating rice bran and 3 leaves.
dans le même document,
In the same documents that I referenced to earlier, D22/3850, you stated, Madame Civil Party, on ERN French page 00860741, ERN in English 867208, and in Khmer 0057164. You state the following. I, for one, stayed there in order to break stone, and I was treated as a prisoner of war. The word prisoner of war was used by the Khmer Rouge regarding the 17 April people. Why is this so, Madame?
We were treated as the new people, the 17 April people, which had a different social status or class compared to the best people. While we were working, we were watched by armed people. Even during the night time, while when we were sleeping, people would be walking around and monitoring us. We were forced to break rock and to achieve the 3 tau of rocks per day for road construction. I was wounded in my leg and I was forced to break a big rock. And at the time, Mr. President and Your Honors, I did not have any medicine for the treatment of my leg. The wound became worse and infected and I could not walk, but I had to move myself to go and break rock, otherwise my ratio would be withdrawn. So I had to work while I was sick, and the only thing that I could use for the treatment of my wound was to pick the tobacco remains that was thrown away by the Khmer Rouge, and I used it for the treatment of my wound.
Merci.
Thank you. Unfortunately, I do not have enough time to delve further into that matter. However, I do have 2 remaining questions or subjects that you raised in the same document concerning a woman who was severely beaten and punished by the Khmer Rouge because one of her children had denounced that she stole a pumpkin, and you stated that the woman was the wife of the unit chief. And it was explained that she was not beaten as an individual, but she was being beaten on behalf of the regime, on behalf of Angkor, as a way of retaliating against imperialists and capitalists. Were you able to sense the sense of mistrust and defiance that the leaders felt against people such as yourself, members of the bourgeois class?
That is true. A woman whose husband was a former soldier and who was breaking rock next to me was that while the mother was breaking rock, the children who were left behind in the village were beaten up and interrogated. They were asked whether what the parents were doing during the former regime and whether they stole anything from Angkor. When I returned from breaking rock, I saw at the back of my children, they actually used a charcoal chalk to draw or write something on the backs of my children, and I noticed they did that almost every day, because when I returned from work, my children waved and they told me that they were beaten and asked about the occupation of the father and the mother and whether I stole anything. And I told my 2 children, whatever they were asked, don't ever say that your father was a military officer and lived in the United States. And you have to remember that. Otherwise, if you tell them, then you will be killed. And so would I would be killed as well. So although my children were beaten up by the Khmer Rouge every day, as they were asked about my husband and I, my children maintained that they did not know anything. And I told them that they should say that my husband was a teacher and that we were separated, and that's all they should reply to the Khmer Rouge. And they remembered the phrase, and they always replied the same thing, and for that reason I survived here today. But for that woman who was breaking rock nearby me, the children of the woman were asked, and they were scared, and then they told the Khmer Rouge soldiers that one day my mother hid a pumpkin. So the Khmer Rouge soldier went around looking for a pumpkin, and they couldn't find it. So they used a piece of wood each and began beating that woman. They tied her hands to the bed and asked her to stand on her knees. She was beaten up, and she protested that she did not steal anything. But they kept beating, and they even kicked her in the chest. The woman, the Khmer Rouge female who was pregnant, also kicked her chest and scolded her that she was an imperialist and she was a capitalist, and they kept beating her. So the mother was beaten up in front of me at the rock quarry, and we, the ones who were breaking rock at the time, were told by the Khmer Rouge that the woman was beaten up because she was the enemy and she stole stuff and eat. We could not do anything. We kept our head down. And we were encouraged to beat that woman. Even if I had to die, I would not lay my hand on her. This is the kind of mistreatment conducted by the Khmer Rouge toward the 17th April people.
Merci, c'est ma toute dernière.
Thank you. And one final question as follows. Concerning the treatment awaiting the April 17 people, by the end of the war and just prior to the Vietnamese invasion, what were the village chiefs saying or doing to the 17 April people?
President Prosecutor, could you repeat your question, as there seems to have no interpretation in the other two languages?
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Yes, certainly, Mr. President. Concerning the fate that awaited the 17 April people, a significant event that you raised in your written statement is that as the Vietnamese troops were arriving at the end of 1978, what were the village chiefs asking of the April 17 people? Apparently, they were ordered to dig something. Can you please further elaborate?
Toward the end of the regime, upon the imminent arrival of the Vietnamese troops, Khmer Rouge soldiers forced us, the 17 April people, as that was the stage that the 17 April people were placed in a separate village, and that village was named the 17 April village. We were forced to dig a pit each, which was 2 meters wide, and the width was dependent on the number of the family members. I asked the Khmer Rouge why I was asked to dig a pit, and I was told that it was meant for fertilizer, and I told the Khmer Rouge that I did not have any fertilizer to put in the pit, and I was by myself, and I was sent to the front by the Khmer Rouge. But they kept asking me to dig a pit. It was 2 meters by 0.5 meters and 1 meter deep, but I did not complete it yet because the Vietnamese troops arrived.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much, Madame Civil Party, for having answered my questions. I have no further questions to put to you. Thank you, Mr. President.
President, the floor is now given to Nunji's team to put questions to this civil party. You may proceed. Do you have any issue to raise? Says the President.
Your Honor, as Mrs. Bay has flown all the way from the United States and she has very valuable information on the impact of her suffering, we ask for just 5 more minutes for the civil parties to pose the questions on suffering to her.
The President, you are granted with the time to put the question to the civil party. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Your Honor. Mrs. Bay, I just have 3 more questions for you. What you described to us that you have symptoms such as nightmares, did any of these symptoms change when you left Cambodia and came to the United States?
This symptom has stayed with me until today. And even though I arrived in the United States, but the traumatic experience still follow me. Because when I got to the United States, I look at the children of American family. I recall the time when I had with my family why my children were so unfortunate. American family and children had access to education. They live a happy life in the family. But my family's life was a complete different. I still recall the time when my children talked to me. I remember every word they said to me. Whenever I recall that moment, I felt traumatic. I could not hold my tear. My tears runs down immediately whenever I recall the past sorrowful experience in our family, particularly the tragic death of my children during the Khmer Rouge period.
And did you have any more children at the end of the war?
I do not have any children following the collapse of the regime. And as I said, my health got deteriorated. During the Khmer Rouge regime, as a woman, I did not have any hemorrhage, and I was living like a man. I did not have my sexual health did not allow me to have any other children.
Now, Mrs. Bay, we're aware that you're a mental health counselor at the Gardner Health Center and that you work with Cambodian victims of the Khmer Rouge regime. Can you tell us what problems you see amongst these victims that are living in the U.S. today?
It is true. In the present job I am holding, I provide mental counseling to the people, particularly Cambodian refugee in particular, under the Cambodian program. The Cambodian refugee who have brought along with them the traumatic life that they had come across during the Khmer Rouge regime. Each and every family of the Cambodian refugee had suffered traumatic experience during that period. No family was spared from the atrocity. That's why I have been working to assist a Cambodian family by providing mental counseling, particularly to Cambodian families who do not make a good living in the United States. We provide them counseling not only to reconcile them for the traumatic experience they have come across, but also the life pressure that they have had when they resided in the United States. Those Cambodian American family described to me their suffering during the regime, as well as the pressures that they have, particularly those who are at the elderly stage in life. They had come across the Khmer Rouge regime. They had quite similar suffering as I have had. They told me about nightmare that they had. I believe them completely because I myself experienced that. I still have nightmare until today. I have never had any good dream. I have never had dream of a glorious life in the United States. I have never dreamed of resettling in the United States. I only dream of the Khmer Rouge chasing after me for my life.
And this suffering you described, how has it affected their lives in the United States, their ability to adapt to life in the United States?
Are you talking about Cambodian American families or myself?
Both of you.
They have suffered mental suffering, as everyone might be well aware that the Khmer Rouge regime took place in some 30 years ago. However, the mental state of mind of Cambodian people who came across this regime, both the average Cambodian family and myself, we still have this mental suffering.
Thank you, Mrs. Bay. And as a victim living in the United States, can you tell us quickly, why did you apply to be a civil party in Case 2?
The suffering I have had cannot be compensated. My tears continue to drop. I would like to appeal to the court to find justice for my dead children, to my family who were killed by the Khmer Rouge. none of my family members survive the regime. If those dead family members do not find justice, I believe that I will not be able to die at peace as a mother, as a daughter for my parents, and a mother of my children. I want to find justice for them, and not until the justice is done for them, I am not feeling appeased. I would like to ask the court to find justice for the victims. I have been waiting for a long time for the justice to be brought to us, and I want to see justice, and I want to see today, and today is what I have been waiting for. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Bay, and thank you, Your Honors. I have no further questions.
The President, thank you. The time is now appropriate for adjournment. The Chamber will adjourn for 20 minutes and we will resume at 11. Court officer, please assist the civil party during the break and have her return to this courtroom by 11. The court is now adjourned.
សូមក្រោកឈរ